for Tuesday, April 16th, 2024 at 6:30 PM in the McDonald Brown Conference Room is now open, and I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes for April 2nd.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
New public hearing for 109 Spring Street, and I'll read that in. Under the Wetlands Protection Act, Chapter 131, Section 40 MGL, as amended, the West Bridgewater Wetlands Protection Bylaws and Rules and Regulations, and the Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on April 16th, 2024 at 6:30 PM in the McDonald Brown Conference Room, 65 North Main Street, on a notice of intent at 109 South Spring Street for proposed construction of a 5-lot residential subdivision with associated private road, common septic system, private drainage facility, and associated infrastructure with a wetland resource area. All right, so we are open to that. And
Yep, I was gonna say, if you wanna sit on this side, you might be able to see the presentation easier.
Can you see?
Yep, you're right, I catch.
I've got it here, thanks.
I'm Chris Vandenberg with Civil Environmental Consultants, representing my client, Jack Peters, for a proposed residential subdivision. Out of curiosity, is everyone familiar with the project? I know it was like permitted and approved like years ago, so this might look all familiar to everyone.
for different reasons, yeah.
Gotta bring us up to date.
Yep, so kind of a little back history on the project. Mr. Peters approached Civil Environment Consultants. I believe he hired a previous engineer. Bottom line, I know he received, I believe, an order of conditions from the commission back, I believe it was sometime around 2017. I was trying to read through the meeting minutes to try to pretty much mimic exactly what was done and approved previously. The project did receive an ORAD issued from the commission, I think back in September of last year, I believe. So I was trying to, Mr. Peters approached us essentially to, he said his permit's expired. We pretty much had to kind of go back to the drawing board, get a new permitted plan. So pretty much just utilizing the previous approvals, kind of reading through the old minutes, reading through the order of conditions, pretty much just did exactly what was done previously, with the addition of a few minor differences. So here's just the overview of the project along Spring Street, abutting Harvestwood Drive. On the eastern side, we have North Main Street here. Existing conditions, if anyone's familiar with the site, it's generally juvenile meadow at this point. It's just all kind of weeds. I believe there was an enforcement order years ago on the property. He's done previous clearing on the site that I was not involved with well before I came on board.
Could you please define enforcement order?
All I know is I just saw that term reading through some of the meeting minutes. That's all I know. But I know there's a long history on this project. I don't know too much of it, but I do know the commission order of conditions and amended order for, I think, a minor project change. But where I picked the project up, there was a swath of wetland here that was previously approved from the plan years ago. Tim and I went out, I think back sometime in September, agreed the wetland line is more in this kind of a swath. An ORAD was issued. We're pretty much utilizing this setup with the wetland line for the basis of design. The site is currently, like I said, all generally cleared with high weeds and just generally run down old grassy meadow area. So with that, our client approached us with essentially trying to recreate what was previously approved, but as all his permits previously lapsed. So he told us he would like a 6-lot subdivision. Pretty much that was done previously. Hashing it out with them. We told them, based on how the wetland line has changed, we came up with this kind of a layout with 5 lots. Due to this expanded wetland line, we had to lose a lot here. Here's the proposed development. You can see most of the site encompasses within the 100-foot buffer zone. Here's the areas outside the 100-foot buffer. 50-foot no touch, highlighted in green here. So as I said, previously going through the project, I was trying to see what the commission wanted to see and was essentially approved. Everything is maintaining outside the 50-foot no touch, except for this minor swath here, which a retaining wall was previously approved with the, I believe it was from the planning board. With this minor, there's this 50-foot variant, so actually we'd be requesting a variance for this 50-foot no touch and minor 50-foot no touch in here for drainage outfall. Everything else maintains the exact same from the previous layout. We just lost a lot here due to the expanded wetland. Drainage basin is in the same location. Common septic system is in the same location. We're kind of reading over the meeting minutes and see what the board kind of wanted to see. Pretty much arrived at this layout with ultimately having a conservation restriction easement, which I was reading through the minutes, and that's something I believe that was wanted to be done. Here's just the general road right profile. Same layout as was done before. High point at I think it's about 175 feet into the road, sloping back down to Spring Street with catch basins at the entrance, and slopes downwards towards the infiltration basin. Similar layout to what was approved previously. Here we have, it's just the sedimentation control plan. Similar what was done before, showing construction entrance, places for dewatering pits, brewing a couple sediment traps for construction period drainage. Detail sheets, and someone's probably more interested for the commission is the buffer zone management plan. I saw this was previously done. Pretty much utilized the same methodology that was done previously from, I believe it was Robert Sabadia Inc. Utilized the same methodology they had, just instead of 6 lots, it's now 5 lots. So this is the area with the 50-foot no touch. So providing a 2-to-1 buffer zone enhancement area within this blue dash line here. So this would be, let me say, we didn't have a wetlands scientist on board. But reading that document, I came up with the same methodology and the same notes that they previously had to show mitigation outside of the 50-foot enhancement with a 2-to-1 replication area. And that was, there's it. Any questions?
Is the replication area gonna be in the wetland area?
No,
No,
But it's gonna be it's gonna be in the 50-foot buffer.
no, it's gonna be outside of 50 feet. Yeah, I looked at the one that was previously done, and it's very simple. Like the two biggest things that I believe that are different from the previous Jacobs Driscoll plan was we are proposing a 2-to-1 slope here as opposed to a retaining wall. He said that was going to cost him like $1 million+. Other than that, doing a 2-to-1 slope here, and I think there might have been a drainage outfall somewhere in this area, and just we needed that for a drainage mitigation for that area right there. And that is the I think that is the only like real change from the previous plan.
So what prevented it from going from 6 to 5 house lots?
Was this
That area right there?
Yeah, this area here, yeah. So like me, Mr. Peters approached us. We were trying to understand, what he was essentially wanting to achieve, based on the fact that the wetland line, expanded from, kind of this narrow area to more this. Well, right off the bat, he lost a lot. So kind of working with the no constraints, that's where we kind of arrived at.
What's that on the top, the blue lines? That section right there?
This one,
Yeah.
this
That
hash,
one, yeah.
that is all the areas within the 50-foot buffer. Or not the 50-foot, yeah, this is like the 50-foot essentially no touch outline there.
and that's the other one is on the other street, yeah.
Yeah, yep.
So these documents are dated back?
Which a couple lines back.
Sure. You're just presenting a plan that was previously approved?
Trying to, I understand it received planning board approval. An order of conditions was issued on the project for, I believe, the 6-lot subdivision. I understand reading through the minutes, it was amended because there was, I believe, planning board comments that needed revisions, and then I think somewhere like April of 2018, he scrapped the whole thing and went down to a 3-lot subdivision. I didn't see that order of conditions, but it was, he's like less impactful in there, so I can tell you that. But yeah, I understand that an order of conditions was issued by the commission for a 6-lot layout.
And in order to get, is it the roadway with the 50-foot, you're gonna have to replicate?
Yeah,
In order to be able to do that, that's the way you're gonna be able to get the road in?
yeah, there was, I mean, there's, good, you're absolutely losing a lot. If you really need to be outside, you know, I think it's, looking at 40 to 50 feet to shift everything over.
So if you're to shift something over, you'd probably lose another house lot.
Yeah, quite frankly, possibly 2. I know like there's a zoning requirement, you need a 100 by 100 box. And these boxes are pretty, they're not shown on this plan, but you know, I can just see visually here, like this lot will be gone, you might have to reconfigure, maybe lose that lot.
Well, how big are the house lots?
I believe minimum was 30,000 square feet, and they are. Yeah, 30,000 square feet, so 34, just a hair over 30. This one's large enough, very large.
Were we thinking about getting the lots larger?
That's
Well,
coming
they have to
up.
have 27,000 square feet of buildable outside of jurisdictional area.
To be able to.
To meet it.
There's a warrant article coming up that
Yeah.
may change that, but
So they've got the square footage for each lot.
Because it's 30,000.
Yeah.
Your question is gonna be the 50-foot no-touch and what they're offering for mitigation. Normally, new construction, we've held that you have to stay outside it.
Well, that's the way I'm thinking. It's like, even though you might lose a couple more, it's a new construction, so we don't like,
I mean, they are
we want to stay
staying
out.
outside of the wetlands, so they're not having to do any
But
square
still,
foot within a
even
wetland.
though,
But the 50-foot no-touch being a local bylaw. The only other question or concern, the drainage line at the beginning of it, that encroaches into the 50-foot. Typically don't have the drainage in the 50-foot. I was just curious if that could be put outside it.
I know I was trying to look at, I could tell you, I know in the Jacobs Driscoll plan, they had that, same thing, the high point here, water was flowing here. I could tell you exactly, they had a drainage inlet structure here. I can't remember if it was picking up runoff and running to get captured in the infiltration basin, or if it was outletting somewhere. I can't remember. We could, I know essentially this becomes a dam at this point, so it has to go, yeah, because all this runoff, it's running down here, getting picked up here, and then rerouting back this way. I believe, based on what I looked at, and I know for a fact, there was an issue with the sewer, because it has to be a certain amount of depth, that there was a crossing, I believe it was crossing here, and I had to lower it, and that's why it's this far out, because based on like a 1% slope,
Yeah.
it had to come out here, it could not come out there. I think there could be ways to potentially mitigate on paper. Yeah, it looks like very much you could, but I think there is definitely an issue with trying to get this inlets and outlets to work where
Yep.
it would, yeah, like obviously, you know, why would we have it that far down? There's definitely a wrangling reason for that, I know that.
so these are gonna be septic systems, or is it gonna be all one into
On-site, common septic system.
each house?
No,
No.
so they.
It's all gonna be one.
Yeah.
Every house will have its own.
So is this
septic
gonna be like a homeowners association?
Yep. And I know the project, I believe, also received Board of Health approval too, for the 6-lot layout too.
So Tim, this has been on again, off again, do we have to get
For
new
years,
wetland
yeah.
delineation?
That's why I had to go out and delineate
So
it.
you did that?
Yeah.
We did that previous to come up with a new wetland line.
right.
I don't know how,
Chairman,
any comments in the
From the
audience?
gallery?
Can I,
Yeah, you go right ahead.
No, you
Ladies-
wanna go?
No, ladies first.
Go ahead.
I have 2 questions. Can I go over to the,
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
these boxes? You were talking about these boxes. What are those?
Those are just potential house boxes, all subject to
What do you
like
mean house boxes?
house box. So like, you know, like just a typical, you know, have maybe a 34 by 60 house, you know, like your house box, you know, just the dimension of a house. And it also has kind of a reference, you know, we do have a note on the plan, like the final site layout of all these lots would be subject to like, I believe it's, you know, building department approval. So what you show here is just preliminary anyway.
Okay.
But typically like this purple line here is the limit of work. So we're proposing, you know, we're not gonna be clearing up here, we're not clearing down here. You know, this is your limit of work, this is the constraints you have, you know, the potential buyer would have to work within.
Okay. Second question, you know the page that you have
like in this area where you were talking about the retaining wall that he was.
Yeah, you can kind of, like, I mean, I limit
All
it,
right.
but it would be
And-
there.
Yeah, right, so it's gonna supposedly be in here, but you said something about a 2-to-1, what are you talking about?
Yep, so typical like engineering practice for us, you grade at a 3-to-1 slope. That's kind of, so like, these lines here, these are 1 foot contours, so in like my engineering world, we offset these lines 3 feet. So,
Okay.
you know, if you try, you know, so 2 feet, you'd run 6 feet out, drop 2 feet, and that's a 3-to-1 slope. Now we're proposing, so if you want to do, like, say, a 1-to-1 slope, that becomes very steep, so you can have more room to like grade out. So if we did 3-to-1 slope here, our grading line would be somewhere like maybe there, more impactful within the buffer zone. So proposing just a 2-to-1 slope, it's just going to be a little steeper in that area.
Okay, so if you do all what you just said,
Yep.
then he will not have to put that retaining wall in.
Yeah, from what I saw from the previous plan, it was like a 9-10 foot high wall.
Yes.
I didn't price it out, but he said it was like, oh, it's $1 million retaining wall.
Mm.
Okay, I'll trust you. I'll trust you on that.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Can you tell me your concern about a retaining wall?
Oh, it's just that, he was asked to put it in, that's all, to kind of like make sure that nobody is going into
Mhm.
like, the wetlands and such.
So you were involved previously, or like you had concerns previously?
Leave 53G there.
Yes.
No.
And it's good to hear, because I had no idea. You know, I'm just reading something on a page, and I'm like, that's
I
good to know.
understand, I understand.
Hey,
Well-
Tim,
Needless,
question.
He's got a
We approved this back in 2017 with certain replications, plus we had a 53G done at that time. Could we review the 53G before we give approval tonight
right,
and review the replications that were supposed to be done?
right, my recommendation's going to be a 53G.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm gonna bring that up at the end. My other recommendation is that the planning board is not gonna take this up until, I believe it's May 16th.
Yeah, or 50.
Right, so if we start the 53G process, we might have information.
Right.
My recommendation is gonna be to continue this hearing until the May 21st meeting.
Yep.
That way their planning board will have at least opened it, got comments back, so that if they have changes or questions, we're not wasting money and time with engineering on it.
Is that 53G, is that for like a peer review?
It'll be for the stormwater and the conservation of wetland and review.
Okay.
We tend to use the same one,
Yep.
both with the planning board, just to make it a little faster and easier.
Yep.
I'll check with the planning board and see who they're planning on using as well.
I can't remember who did
And
that.
he's already been out there once,
Yeah.
way back, so, if it's the same one.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to, again, there was so much history on it that, you know, you guys know more about than I do, but I was trying to read through like previous comments that were done,
Right.
just trying to like really, you know, get on the same page. That was, I'm not gonna, hey, let you know, throw 20 houses in here, well, that wasn't approved, you know, 6 was. So that was, you know, again, like I said, everything's the same except the fact of, you know, like losing a retaining wall, and that was it, and just need to say we lost a lot because of this expanded wetland.
Bob, you need this thing?
My concern is runoff, water, okay? You pointed down towards Spring Street down the end, but you also said it was gonna backflow this way
Yeah, so the way it kind of,
instead of going into like a basin and then
Yeah, so,
onto Spring Street? Or
yeah,
under,
yeah, the unique part about this project was, you know, like, I didn't really want to reinvent the wheel with this, you know, I kind of saw what was previously done. The site, you know, it generally slopes, you know, it slopes downward, generally, with the natural topography. So with this, we have a high point, so this is the proposed roadway here, this is your high point. So water right now is flowing down here to your set of catch basins here, so it's going here, running to this pond. At about here is a high point, it's just uncontrolled flow into Spring Street. That's why these sets of catch basins are here to capture the runoff.
okay.
And essentially it routes it underground back to here, discharging to there. That's what's gonna happen.
So all that water is gonna drain into the swamp.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what it looks like.
Which happens to be my backyard.
Which one? This,
I'm on Commonwealth Ave, okay? And, it's not on there, I don't think.
Yep.
You got Harvestwood and you got Main Street,
but then you're,
I'm down here somewhere.
Yeah.
But anyhow, my concern is, my water table's high enough as it is, I got water in my basement.
Yep.
The other thing is that we no longer have a forest out there to absorb water because we had a beaver dam which flooded the whole area
I've heard about that a few
and
times.
killed every tree out there. So I've just got a bunch of dead standing trees out there. Used to be a beautiful, swamp with living trees. There's nothing living out there anymore, so there's nothing there to absorb water.
So you're on Common Law?
Yeah.
Where's that?
Let's see,
School there.
Spring Street, Howard Street. Figures were not named,
Oh, it's
but
not-
it's in here.
Okay, it is.
It's in here somewhere. That's Howard, and I'm right in here.
Okay.
So, actually, I think that's it right there. It's not, see, it looks like a roadway going in there.
Okay, so it's not, okay, it's right
It's not
there.
labeled, yeah.
It comes off of North
It's
Main
not-
Street.
Right, and it's
Oh, I gotcha.
behind
Yeah.
Turner Steel.
Yep, oh, I
Oh.
gotcha. Oh, yeah.
So anyhow, my biggest concern is runoff. Was, especially, am I mistaken in, I didn't think that the Conservation Board had approved either a 5 or a 6 lot development. I thought the Planning Board had.
They would
Yeah,
approve it.
they would.
Right, and so everything's, seems to me that everybody else has approved like a 5 lot.
Yeah, we kind of work,
Kinda.
we kind of work together because
Yeah.
if we have concerns to change something,
Right,
it goes back to them because that'll change things for them.
right, right. So, again, my concern is runoff, stormwater, raising the level of the water table out back. I personally am not in favor of giving a variance to put the road where it wants to put
I
it.
could tell you, even if we did, do everything by right, just, that water table ain't gonna make a difference. Or that one or two lots we use, that ain't gonna, I mean, I'm not an expert in the fact of, I thought, hey, if you lived here, yeah, but like, obviously our stormwater reports are designed to show that, we are mitigating stormwater runoff. I can't tell you by fact that, hey, that's gonna solve your problem or gonna make it worse,
Right.
but I certainly get it.
So, like I said,
Well,
my sump pump goes enough as it is, and, again, there's nothing living out in that swamp anymore. It's all dead, it's all dead wood.
my concern too, just me, this is my opinion. I don't want to see the 50-foot being encroached. I'd rather have it moved out of the 50-foot, not touched. Whether you're gonna move the road or not, lose the house or whatever, that's part of the new construction, that's part of whatever you gotta do to make it work, so. It's either, my opinion, I don't know what the rest of the board's opinion is, but I would rather see it not in the 50-foot, the roadway. So,
Obviously, any, so when you say the roadway, like, would that be fine?
yeah, anything like with, up on the top there where you're gonna do the slope,
Yep.
move everything out of the 50-foot.
Yeah, I know that was a major concern for him. I mean, it was a massive retaining wall in like.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you move it out, you're not gonna be putting anything in there
No,
anyways.
true.
So,
Now, obviously, so that I mean, that was like you said, my opinion. My opinion, like, is hey, this was already previously disturbed. Whether we're not filling the wetlands by any means, but hey, we're, it's the whole site is completely disturbed anyway.
yeah, but I mean, it's been going on for how many years, and it seems like, it was 7, went down to 6, whatever. I mean, hey, you gotta work with what you got.
I mean, I will say, no matter what, to get to the back 3 lots, they're going to encroach in the 50-foot.
The back.
I mean, to get a roadway in there.
Oh yeah. I mean, you're.
I mean, if you've got a 50-foot wide layout for the road, which is typically what I believe the planning board uses, between the 2 50-foot lines, even if you move the road out,
North.
Yeah.
you're still gonna, I think there's still gonna be some encroachment, probably into a 50-foot on one side or the other.
It's close. I mean, right off the so this lot gets wiped out. And then
I know
it's
that that's why the retaining wall partially was there, was for the wetland
Yeah.
previous, and the fact to stabilize the road.
Yeah, and that's,
I mean,
that's not like my wheel.
right,
But that did come.
That
into
was one of the
play.
concerns the planning board had, that
And I did
the
see
slope would, because it was such a high slope.
that. Yeah, and that's
going
what I
along
think,
there.
that I'm not, that's one thing, could be subject to, structural approval. I know, I did see the notes that I think they had to come back and change it, because they were looking, they were maybe proposing 1-to-1 or riprap or something.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, if we did 3-to-1 versus 2-to-1, I don't know structurally what that does to it.
Because this is a private road, which is gonna be, and something happens to that road down the road later on, and it affects the wetlands or whatever, it's gonna become a town problem.
Well, it'll be the homeowners association.
But still, it'll
which will be
become a town
back charged
problem.
with liens or whatever to fix it.
But
I mean, it's,
it'll become a town problem, so prevent it from happening now. Do what you gotta do. That's my opinion.
Why would we give a variance?
Well, I mean, that's me, and you guys wouldn't speak on that, that's my opinion.
Do you know why I was granted?
Well,
before?
was the discussion if we didn't give a variance, you could lose 2 lots.
Yeah, clearly one for sure.
And I'm not anxious to take that away from him necessarily.
What's that?
that's the commission's
Yeah.
prerogative, how you
Take-
want to deal
Take what
with the.
away?
Well, he wouldn't be able to sell the lots, or he might get 1 out of it.
Well,
Is
this
that what
is,
you're
this is
saying?
before building anything. This is before starting anything.
Yeah.
To do this now and make sure it's taken care of. You'll still have the rest of the
I
property
mean,
and the
you were
lots to
looking
do.
at that, just that little hump there, is that right?
But that's like 50 feet. You're gonna have to move everything, so it's a
So
pretty
instead of a
big-
straight road, it would be
Yeah, it was coming up.
come in around with a hump in it.
Yeah, I mean, personally,
I
I
mean,
don't see any, we're gonna have mitigation along the, outside the 50. I mean, that's my feeling, but
Mhm.
the rest.
I mean,
of
as
the
long
board-
as there's enough mitigation to warrant granting the waiver, I mean,
Yeah.
you just have to decide is that waiver, in this case,
Right.
worth granting? I mean, or
Right, and that
Should-
really isn't much to do with what your issue is anyway, no, it's separate, kind of a separate thing.
I don't know, I live right on the edge of the swamp, you know what I
It
mean?
looks
So,
to me as though that water sheds that way anyway, does it?
yeah,
into
okay,
that
so
swamp.
An additional 5 or 6 houses and a paved road, nowhere for the water to absorb to, a common septic system at the end, where's that gonna leach to? What happens if that fails,
Well,
you know?
Yeah.
And Lee's exactly right. I've lived in town all my life, I've seen private roads become public roads because of the cost to maintain them, you know? And when something bad happens, it's usually us that has to go fix it.
Mhm.
You know, you can put all the liens you want on the property in the association, but you know, you're not gonna leave a roadway in condition where people are gonna get hurt. We're gonna have to go fix it,
It becomes a
and then we're
town
gonna have to go
liability.
get the money from them.
is it gonna be, well, we even get into what kind of a roadway, like I live on Captain Carlson,
Right,
that's not a road,
right.
that's a driveway, so there's never any issue of.
Yeah, okay, you can call it a driveway all you want.
Technically, they call it a
Technically,
driveway,
it's a driveway, okay.
yeah, yeah.
I think,
So this town would never approve it as a, and I'm wondering if that's gonna be the same.
Well, I think that's why their application was the way it's worded as a
Mhm.
associated private road, common septic system, private drainage facility, meaning that it's similar to a homeowners
Yeah.
association with a private, everything is private.
right,
Right.
That's being proposed, that's before us now. It's before the planning board. It doesn't mean that that won't someday become a town road. We've accepted those before.
yes, we have.
But we just want to make sure it's,
Yeah.
everybody knows what we're buying into.
Right.
And do that
Is
up
there,
front.
is there any way you can calculate additional runoff
Yeah, so our
into
stormwater
that
report.
swamp, which is the concern here, where, how
Which
much
that's why
will
that
it
drainage
raise it?
basin is
But
where
we
it
do have a
is.
retention basin.
Right.
Right,
But then you can put the drainage on the other side, where to the, at least where one of those house lots are, so it goes off equally.
Yeah, I mean.
It helps prevent,
Try not to reinvent the wheel, but yeah.
No, but I mean, you gotta
absolutely.
do
Now
what you
you
gotta
just
do.
bought yourself a lot more area. over
Yeah.
there, for sure. Yeah, you know, again, I was trying to keep it simple, like, hey, this was previously approved, why not, you know, had he pulled his permit, this would have been built already. And guess what, he would have been, well, a retaining wall, but, you know,
Yep.
same amount of work essentially.
Mm.
And that was my thoughts on it, like, hey, this was previously approved, how can you say no at this point?
you can't blame me come in and do it simple as possible,
Right.
but
Yeah,
you gotta think of the future though, too. We don't wanna take on something that's gonna cost any more than what it should cost.
and I have no idea how much you've been into it for, but I mean, like,
Oh, I don't care about that, I'm just thinking
Yeah.
about taxpayers having to
Yeah.
worry about it, paying for it down the road if something ever does happen. Not saying it will, but
yeah. I hear you.
My thought is, why do we have a 50-foot no touch if you can go ahead and touch?
it depends on, I can understand if, you know, if you got previously disturbed areas where you get, you know, for a house or a house that wants to put it on an addition,
This is new.
okay.
I mean, we
That's why I
we
said
can't
this
deny
is
him access to the
mitigation.
back piece of property
Right.
to get there, so he has to be allowed to go
Yeah.
to it or through it. But if there's a way to do it without going into the 50-foot,
There is mitigation, but this is all
You
can
can-
be done
Right.
the way out of it right now before it starts.
To answer kind of your question, our stormwater reports, on paper, it shows that, a peak rate, so there's say 20 cubic feet of water going here. If stormwater standards in Massachusetts states that whatever you're designing, based on certain criteria, it has to either meet or be less than that. So that's on paper, that is what this design shows.
Yep.
I can't tell you in actuality if that's physically gonna happen or not. You've been in town for a while?
65 years, it's going to be 66.
So, so I'm guessing Harvestwood Drive was not there when you were
You're
running?
right, it wasn't when I
Okay,
first,
so-
when I was born.
Okay.
That was one of those private roads that became public.
Yeah, I know those are kind of newer houses, so.
So, but anyhow, I sort of kind of feel bad for you because you're coming in at late in the game,
Thanks.
okay? But there's a lot of history to that piece of property,
Yeah, I'm a little
Okay.
aware.
and without getting into ancient history, there was a huge amount of that property was conservation land,
Mhm.
and he just went in and cleared it.
Yeah, I know there's I don't know what
Okay.
it looked like before, but I know what it looks like now.
So, for us to sit here and talk about even giving up more,
Yep.
is kind of upsetting, to be honest with you. I mean, you're concerned about the guy having to give up a house lot, I'm.
Two.
Two, and quite honestly, I'm not that concerned about it based on his behavior in the past.
Well,
You
he
know?
paid a price for that.
What?
He did pay a price for that.
I paid a price too. As a town resident that used to have a beautiful forest behind his house, that's no longer there.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're assuming the runoff ruined it,
No, I'm not assuming that at all.
but how did it happen? I mean,
I'm talking about literal facts, okay? When the Cub Scouts used to go out there and practice making campfires in the huge pine grove that used to be out there is no longer there because somebody went and cleared it without permission, without permits.
was it, yeah. I remember
Okay, so
that, yeah.
now we're talking about giving additional
Yeah,
variances.
but there were fines and,
there were things that happened back, but it's
But
still.
that was all on
it-
him, so that's
Right.
his,
Yeah,
it was
I
his
mean-
decisions to do it, so.
I'm just looking at past history of the behavior of the owner of the property.
Yeah.
Okay? And.
I have to be
addition-
careful that I don't get into, well, I'm gonna punish him.
No, and I get
No.
that. I
Yeah.
mean, I try very hard not to let personalities play a role in it.
Right.
Okay? But fact of the matter is that it is gonna increase runoff because there's gonna be
But
paved
it's,
road.
it's being handled if you listen to what he's saying, though.
I hear what he's saying. I also know that I was told that the retention ponds out in Scotland Street were not gonna hold water, they were gonna drain right off, and that's not happened, okay? So, I'm a little nervous about, giving into variances when I see past projects land up the way they are. So, and based on his behavior in the past, it gives me cause for concern.
Mhm.
And personally, if he loses a lot or two, I feel bad for him to a certain extent, but then again, I don't. I
Mm.
want the road further away from my property, up the hill a little bit or whatever, and stop encroaching upon no touchstones,
Right.
Right.
Yeah, we're
Says
just,
no touch for a
It's
reason.
difficult for us because every project that goes up in town, you've got abutting neighbors that are out of their mind
Yeah.
because
Well,
it's
I'm
going
still
up,
saying-
so. You know,
Okay, some
and
people
we have
may not
to, we
think
have to
so.
be very
I'm still
objective.
saying,
We have to be objective about what
I get it.
we're
I
approving.
do get it.
Yeah.
I'm
my,
willing to be objective, I just don't need any more, especially with the way that swamp is dead now.
yeah.
All those trees are dead.
The only way I look at it is, I don't mind somebody doing something with a property,
Right.
but you gotta do it the right way.
Right.
And my opinion is different from everybody else, but
Yeah.
I just see it as, I'm not here to give anybody a hard problem, but this is how I would like to see it. If I get 2-1, hey, that's just the way it's gonna work.
Yep.
So, should we vote on working in giving the 50-foot?
You can take a
Working in
vote
it
now if you
tonight,
want to
or
grant the
just-
waiver or not.
Do you wanna do
Or
it
you can give them
tonight?
direction to come up with a plan, either propose a plan to go outside of it,
So-
or if you want to entertain a mitigation plan.
So we
to allow for
we
it.
do a vote tonight about not working touching the 50, the plan's gonna have to change.
Right, or
Okay.
anything like that.
So I think I'd rather we do it now, tonight, so you can know what you gotta work with if that's what happens tonight.
So what does that mean? Okay, you vote on that, can we have a super duper mitigation plan that shows X, Y, Z things to do that, how's that kinda work with the commission? Like obviously, like you said, you say, no, I don't want that, but if you like outrule.
Oh, yeah, I mean, if I get, 2-1 or something like that, then you put in the mitigation of what you're gonna, but you're already doing 2-1, so.
Yeah, I mean, I personally haven't reached out to, I just looked at the previous
Yep.
mitigation plan that was done. I don't know if there's anything else that can be additionally done to, hey, we're touching this, but let's provide 2-1, elsewhere maybe 3-1, I'd reach out to an actual wetland scientist, show them this, what can you provide us, and if that would be more amenable to the commission.
So I'll entertain a motion to grant a waiver to work in the 50.
I'll second it.
Any
Now take the
opposed?
vote, yeah.
Any
Yep,
opposed?
I'm opposed.
I'm opposed. Steve?
Approved.
And I said
Approved.
aye, so.
DC approved?
Yeah.
So it's 2-2.
Yeah.
So now what?
My suggestion at this point is I would have them go back to the engineering board and see what they can do to keep that out of the 50 as much as possible.
Okay.
And what they can offer for mitigation for going into it.
Yep.
And
And for the drain too.
right, and it will see, I mean, we're gonna send it out for 53G for the
Yep.
stormwater for the drainage.
Okay.
I know the planning board will send it out for their review as well. I'm sure everybody's gonna be looking at that road layout, and if that slope and the width of the road requirement, it may be that it's gonna have to be a retaining wall of some size, because the
And I'd
slope
like
just
to,
won't work.
hopefully we could find some way of, that Bob would be happy and wouldn't, walk away thinking there's gonna be a ton more water coming into
Well, I'd
that
say
swamp.
work on a little bit more better on the
And even if there is
mitigation.
more water, they have to retain it and hold it
Yeah.
for the amount of time so that it's not literally flooding every rainstorm.
So it can be absorbed, I mean,
Right.
'cause, you don't wanna go away and say, this is terrible.
See what you can do with the
Alright.
drain too.
Listen,
Talking
I'm a-
about
I'm a-
this, or-
Yeah, that one.
I'm a
If
firm
you can.
believer in somebody should be able to do what they want with their property, okay?
Yeah.
Just don't adversely affect the people around you.
Of course,
That's all.
Yep.
of course,
That's all. Do what you want, I don't
of
care.
course. That's
Just
why,
don't adversely
that's why
affect.
we're here.
Right,
Yeah.
that's all I'm asking,
All
I
right.
mean, this poor woman has been looking at that in her backyard for a long time.
Where do you live?
Harvest,
Where are you?
44 Harvest, with Donna Cole.
Oh, yeah, you are right there, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
And the other thing I'm gonna recommend is, depending on the size houses.
Yep.
How you're gonna address with the individual lots, stormwater, on that, whether it's gonna be infiltration for the roof runoff, whether you're accounting for the driveway runoff as part of the
Yeah, it
stormwater
was.
plan,
Everything was
totally.
accounted for, in the, don't really know how it works like on a site-by-site basis, but everything was accounted for, the way it kind of works, it's kind of a high point here. Roof runoff, going this way, roof runoff, and the stormwater report shows that with like the
Yep.
area maps.
We're also asking to make sure that if you're designing a 22,000 square foot house, that they
Yep.
don't come in and want a 45,000
Yeah.
square foot house, because the house calculations change drastically.
Yeah,
So-
that, yeah.
Design it for the biggest possible house on
Yeah.
that lot, and the most disturbance you're gonna create on that lot.
I mean, you need to say.
Four-car garage, the swimming pool, the
They're not the
patio.
most desirable lot, so you really don't have not much to work with, but
That's right.
That's gonna cost
Yeah.
my Bible.
The
Still.
new warrant that's
Yeah.
coming up, what is that describing in terms of lot size? Is it changing?
It's gonna allow the lot
Is it,
size to be
are the
bigger.
lots going to be required to be bigger?
That'll end up coming under if the proposed, I believe, bylaw change, the lots will be larger. And then they have to figure out the percentage of the squares and the
Right.
size that can be
Now,
worked on.
let's
So
assume
whether
that
it's,
passes,
Yep.
which probably will. Is that gonna affect this project?
no, this one's already in the pipeline.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
No pun intended.
There you go.
All right, so yeah, I would just
So
say, like
we-
Tim said, just look at the best you can with
Yeah,
the lot sizes, the
take a
house
look at it.
sizes of the houses with the runoff, and we'll go with that. So then I'll entertain a motion to hire a 53G.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
And then
aye.
I'll entertain a motion to to continue to,
I'm suggesting May 21st. Does that
does that work?
work for you?
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean,
so
it-
long as, there's no, plan changes that are gonna be required, because obviously they go to the planning board.
Right.
By the 15th, so, it's gonna change by that point. I believe, that must be, like, I don't know when they meet, must be Tuesday, then like the following, whatever today's, Tuesday, right?
Right, it would be the next week that we would meet, so
it's May,
21st.
it would be May 21st, we would meet, they meet the 16th, that way there they'll have.
I'll make that motion.
What was the status on the 50,
What's that?
what was the status on the 50-foot?
Just, it equaled out, so I guess it's, you work with what you got, but take a better look
Yep.
at what you can do with the drain, if it's possible.
Yep.
And maybe better, a little bit better on the mitigation, if you can.
Yeah, that's, that, again, the whole point was not to, get a slam dunk approval, it's more, hey, get feedback, see how we're gonna receive it.
Okay.
Get a wetland scientist on board, here's what we got.
I mean, that might come, yeah, with the 53G, that might change things different anyway, so.
Yeah, and I mean, I would imagine, if I was the planning board, I'd be looking at, well, yeah, you're showing this, like, that's one thing that jumped out to me, like, you're building a pretty high road, I don't know if structurally if you can handle it, I would suggest, me personally, hey, send that out, maybe we need a retaining wall, and like, hey, if we absolutely need one, well, mitigation is severely mitigated at this point,
Yep.
there's not much in the way of, a 2-to-1 slope anymore, so.
Try to do the best you can. And then we'll see you on the 21st.
Well,
We
thank you very
had-
much.
We didn't finish the vote
Oh, I
on
didn't finish?
continuance. Everybody had to say aye.
All in
I
favor?
made the motion.
Aye.
I know Steve's, okay, now, we'll see you on the
Awesome, thank you.
21st.
All right.
Let's see. Next one is.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
See ya. Next one is 38 United Drive, and that one is a new one, so I'll read that one in too.
Thank you.
Under the Wetlands Protection Act, Chapter 131, Section 40 MGL, as amended, the West Bridgewater Wetlands Protection Bylaw and Rules and Regulations, and the Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on April 16th, 2024 at 6:30 PM in the McDonald Brown Conference Room, 65 North Main Street, for an amended order of conditions at 38 United Drive, 130,000 square foot warehouse as associated work. All right, so what's up with that one?
I believe we have Adam, and I did allow you to share screen if you need to share screen.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. Adam Hunt with Level Design Group. We're looking to, requesting an amendment to the order of conditions for 38 United Drive. The revised plan is a slight reduction in impervious area and overall disturbance. Mainly minor changes to the overall layout. The footprint has been slightly narrower, east to west, longer north-south. It allowed us to eliminate this parking storage area, truck storage area in this area, and just have one straight row of truck storage. We also eliminated the parking up in this corner, in the northeast corner. This previously extended up at a section of as far as the layout goes, that is generally it. Take a look at the grading and drainage plan. As I said, we removed that truck storage area, allowed us to provide a or above ground retention basin or infiltration basin rather. We eliminated the subsurface infiltration basin we had in this area previously under the pavement. And we now do have a small footprint of infiltration, subsurface infiltration area here, which consists of 48-inch pipe. The general configuration, well, first of all, the roof now pitches one way. So there's only one roof drain on this side, and that is all collected and drains out to the subsurface drainage on United Drive. The pavement, all the pavement on the truck pavement here, as well as the area of the infiltration basin, discharges, all is collected in the infiltration of discharges to the wetland through this outlet control structure. That is really it for the changes. We're looking, if the board would be amenable, would like to request approval with the condition that we address the remaining comments. I should have mentioned, we do have some minor comments from the review engineer that we just received. They're mostly just details that we may address them. We just need to formally respond. But otherwise, we're pretty much have addressed those comments. So we would ask that for approval, provided that we address those.
So the parking and the truck, the parking area and the truck parking, I guess you want to say, that's been eliminated. Is that all going to be put to like grass or something, or is that just?
This area here?
Well, from the previously approved plan, you've eliminated parking in a few spots and basically reduced the overall footprint, and it's going to be either remain vegetation or grass, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, like for instance, this area would actually remain trees.
Okay.
That was actually tree line
Okay.
disturbance. I think this is as well. So now, yeah, I mean, this would remain tree. This area of the basin is going to be grass. And as far as
So that's
overall,
all tree
I
on the
think
base
that
there.
those are the two main areas where we eliminated pavement. I mean, there's other small little areas that are kind of a wash one way or another. But those were the main areas.
So yeah. So overall.
So overall, it's a smaller project than the one we had already approved.
it's a better
Yeah.
outtake.
And I will say, because there was 53G money set in the account to review left over from the previous project, I did have the review engineer start the review process on this, even though we haven't opened the hearing formally,
Okay.
and you haven't formally voted to have the 53G, but it wasn't like we needed additional funds.
All right.
So tonight you will need to formally vote to have the 53G.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else we got?
And my other recommendation on this is, the planning board, again, is not taking this up, I believe, until their May 16th meeting on their agenda. Again, it's a modification of what they approved. I don't believe there'll be major changes, but if they do come back with them, I don't want to see us close this and have to go through the whole process again. So I would recommend that, if Adam's okay with it, to continue it until the May 21st. That way there, the planning board will have at least opened it, made their comments, possibly had their review done, and be ready to put it to bed for the 21st.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we have to approve the minor project?
No, we already did, we
That's all set.
voted previously to
Previously, all right.
allow for an amended order, and
Yeah,
that's
that's true,
what we're
okay.
formally
So we
opening the
need a
amended order process.
53G.
Yeah. All right. So I'll entertain a motion to approve 53G.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
And then I'll
aye,
entertain a motion to continue to the May,
May 21st.
May 21st.
So moved.
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Okay, we'll see you then.
All right, Adam, we'll send
Coming
this
to a
off.
conclusion, I
See
think.
you at the last set of comments come back with.
Thank you.
And then, okay, so the next one is 0 Crescent Street. That's continued. Request to
And-
continue.
Yep, Crescent Street is requested to May 7th for continuation. Again, I did ask them if they wanted to go to the 7th or they wanted to wait and go to the 21st. I don't believe they're back again before the planning board until the 16th. So they probably, more than likely, may be requesting until after the planning
Is the
board review.
planning board what's holding things up a little bit, or?
It's a lot of redesign and re-engineering. They had to move the entrance to Jeffries Road a little bit, so they had to re-engineer that. The larger lot sizes and houses possibly have changed calculations, so they've had to go back and redo that.
Yeah.
So it's,
And
This is just the initial development, and
Right.
we've got each house that we will be looking at.
And, okay, yeah.
so they wanted to go to the 7th, but we may potentially see another one, but
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to continue to May 7th.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Okay, the next one is 44 South Main Street. There you go.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
You guys aren't done with this stuff yet?
Jesus, awesome.
It's close.
I think it's only been, what, 6 months?
Yeah,
A year.
Jeez, I know.
let's hope tonight.
Like to see something get done over there. At least you got at least you can see what the water looks like,
Yeah.
the area, how far it comes up.
Yeah, I've walked the site, I've seen it a couple of years in a row now, it seems to be consistent. For the record, Walter Hermano, professional engineer, Hermano Consulting Engineers. I'm here tonight for 44 South Main Street, my client Jordan Kamara, Outdoor Living Materials. It has been some time since we saw you last, but we've had a plan extensively peer reviewed. We're waiting on comments from our response to his original comments, but we have exhaustively looked at all the 35 comments that he had. We've addressed them on the plan. We've done additional work on the project to conform with all of the performance standards, both of stormwater management, the act regulations, the bylaw regulations, including the stormwater regulations for the town of West Bridgewater. We've made improvements to the underground infiltration. This now has a isolator row, which will additionally remove more total suspended solids. The yard has been regraded such that we provide mitigation for compensation for flood storage. We've had the calculations carried out to determine that we have a net gain of flood storage of over 772 cubic yards. The wet basin has been enlarged substantially. It's very robust. This was to ensure it would have significant travel time before reaching the outlet, and that would allow solids to settle. The wet basin, we believe, meets all the requirements of the DEP standards for wet basins. This large structure, I should say, is about 1.5 feet at best out of the ground. It's a hole in the ground in order to contain the water, because we are within the bordering land subject to flooding for most of the property. So we had to be very careful not to fill in the floodplain because we'd have to compensate for it. So our compensation has been through regrading and also this replication area for wetlands up here, because the applicant proposes to fill in 2 IBWs, which it's our understanding are only jurisdictional under the local bylaw. We're replicating more area than is being filled. Mitigation proposed on the plan also includes a habitat maintenance area outside of the reaches of the yard. I could go to another sheet here. What I just described is in yellow. We have a replication area in green. And this aqua color is a planting of woody shrubs. And in red is an area that has a significant amount of Japanese knotweed that the applicant is going to be removing and transforming into a turtle nesting habitat area. It's a little over 5,000 square feet. This area was so selected by LEC and Mark Manganello and his crew. It's nearest to the river, so it'll be ideal if turtles wanted to come up and try and nest in an area that's going to be about 12 inches of nice sand.
You're making me smile.
That's good, that's good.
If it could only be that easy with everybody else.
Yeah.
Say, and I loved it that you got colors. That really helps me. Thank you.
Oh, you're more than welcome, thank you. Appreciate that. This purple area here, this is an area where there's a significant amount of pavement underneath in this quarter, particularly, it used to be the go-kart track. All that's being removed. And the access way is gonna be right here to the existing building. We're pulling it away from the river, and we're removing the impervious area, all in that area, which is within the riverfront area. But that area will be restored. Right now, it's proposed to be, I don't remember the exact plantings, I believe it's native grass species. We still maintain access through here, which will be an easement granted for public access to the town river to launch kayaks or boats. No mechanicalized vehicles, but kayaks, rather, I said that wrong, kayaks are canoes. Kayaks are canoes. There are no other state permits that are required. We're using the existing entrances off of South Main Street and also off of East Center Street. This is a substantially large blow-up of the replication area. It says 8,800 square feet, but that did not take into consideration this connector that we had to maintain in order to consider it one with the existing wetlands. So it turns out to be about 9,300 and 9,400 square feet. Inside this area, we have proposed button bush. It loves the water. We're gonna be just about at the water table, maybe about a foot above the water table. The species that will thrive in that area. And it may grow to maybe 6 or 8 feet tall. Again, no species that will interfere with any of the use of the easement. And that's the electric easement, which is right through the middle of the property, basically.
There's not gonna be like any fences or anything like that. It's just gonna be all open.
Yes.
Easement, yeah. So it's not like it's gonna be
Yeah, yeah.
blocked off. All right, good.
This plan is a digitalized showing of the cuts and fills proposed on the property. The level of intensity was red if it was deeper, and it was supposed to be blue, I believe blue if it was greater, and the blue didn't come out too good. But we have materials that we've considered to be part of the fill equation inside the floodplain. So any materials that he's proposing inside the floodplain has been considered and we've compensated for them. The subsequent sheets are all the detail sheets. The reviewer asked for specific details on certain items, which we have provided. This design relies upon our request for waivers of the local bylaw and the stormwater management regulations. One is to be allowed to work within 50 feet of the existing vegetated wetlands. The entire site has been developed before, right up to the existing wetlands, all the wetland resources. And we are pulling back as much as possible to a point where there's less development, less intrusion than what the previous development of the property was.
And to request a waiver to work in the 50, just in case anybody's listening, that's just to work in it to make it
To
clear it
restore.
out, to make it better,
That's
not to do anything.
right.
It's to make it better. Yeah.
That's correct. It's not development
Yep.
in the sense that he's putting a building out there, a new pavement. It's simply to construct the required stormwater structures.
Yep.
And to put in a replication area. And to gain access for outlets, because the water has to eventually flow through the system. And it will continue to go the way it's going now, down towards the river. The other waiver request was to work within 50 feet of the bank, of the river's bank. Again, as I've demonstrated, we're pulling back as far as we can away from that. And then the third waiver request is to treat the surfaces of the property. We're proposing a recycled asphalt product, it's called RAP, in gravel surfaces as pervious materials. They're not entirely impervious, and they're new materials, so they're gonna have a good deal of permeability to begin with. We've given a runoff coefficient that is, I feel, high enough, that's conservative and will reflect the true conditions of the property once developed. So,
So anything that flows down into the retaining area there,
okay.
the solids, is basically just gonna be the stuff that's on the ground that's coming down through the impervious. It's not like stones and
Yeah, stones and
some of the
sands.
materials and
Yeah.
everything like that. It's
Yeah.
not like, okay,
Everything's gonna be inside of a bin, so it's not like it's just loose piles.
yeah.
Right, if it does flood, it is in the floodplain, so they've already accounted
Hmm.
Yeah,
for the storage for all of that
Yep.
anyways.
Out of all of those 35 challenges you had,
Yes.
which was the worst? The
Uh,
hardest?
Probably sizing this wet basin.
Mhm.
Because originally when we came in, if you recall, it was about this big. And now we've added all this length in order to allow the solids to settle out. And we meet the state's requirements of length to width of 3:1 for a wet basin. That'll be the most challenging.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I should add, the grading proposed in the yard is gonna slope down here towards the sediment forebay. We've made the forebay larger, as the reviewer pointed out, so it's more than adequate. But the water will be sloping across this yard, going through the sediment forebay where solids will be settled out. Then it spills over, and then it goes into the wet basin. The wet basin has also been designed a foot deeper, so it's at least 3 feet deep from what they call the normal pool elevation, which is around 43.8 feet. That's groundwater. So it has 3 feet for water for solids to settle out, and it has to run all the way down here and through to an outlet. But for the most part, all your small storm events, the basin is going to capture all the runoff. I recall it was definitely the 2-year storm and possibly the 10-year storm before any water would start to spill out. So we're going to have substantial treatment that the wet basin affords for whatever may come through this area, in this yard. I should also add that the entire roof is being infiltrated under the infiltration subsurface structure that's under the parking lot, which is rather large. There will be some excess that will bleed out of this structure by design, but that water will go in, again into the yard and then be captured by the wet basin.
And it's already gonna go through a treatment system
Yeah.
for the roof and parking anyways up above. It's just the large storm events have to go somewhere, and that's what it'd be dealing with.
Now, what about cleaning out the basin there where everything's gonna run into first, up in the, before it goes into the wet basin?
The sediment.
Yeah,
flow.
the sediment.
This is easily accessible.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it has a grass bottom. It's only about 1 foot to 2 feet deep. That is part of our maintenance plan where they'll actually have to go in there when it
Clean it
reaches a certain height.
Yep.
You have to scrape it out.
Yep.
Again, that would be solids that should develop in there.
Yep.
Any existing fencing on the property inside is being removed. That's to further allow connection between the riverfront area and most of the property. We don't necessarily want to invite the critters into the yard, but they will be managing to get from the river into this wet basin and using this habitat area. There will be new fences proposed along the front of the property and along the rear on East Center Street. But again, no interior fences other than what is protecting his yard.
Whatever comes in is probably not gonna be,
Yeah.
with the machinery and all that stuff
Yeah.
going on, it's,
Yeah.
they're not like they're gonna be hanging around probably, so.
We have a substantial buffer all around the wet basin. We did not put a buffer on this side of the basin because I, again, don't want to entice them or invite them
Yeah.
to start to try and nest inside this particular area. If it's a wrap surface, they're probably gonna ignore that altogether.
Tim, do you like the button bush?
Yeah, that'll do fine in that
good?
location. I mean,
Okay.
it can take long periods of wet fairly high up, so it's not gonna be a huge issue to.
And again, I think
I mean-
we're right at the water table We have no additional water heading in that direction, so that's gonna be relying on groundwater to keep it a wetlands. So we had our expert, different gentleman, botanist, take a look at that, and we looked at the soils, and he identified the appropriate elevation to set the base of the wetlands area.
I mean, at this point, I'm okay
Looks
with
good.
where we're at. We're just waiting for the next review from the 53G to sign off. And as long as all the stormwater calcs and changes and comments have been addressed,
Should we grant a waiver to work on the 50?
yeah, we're gonna have to grant the waiver for the work in the 50 and from the impervious, pervious service of our stormwater bylaw, but those won't be, I mean, we're gonna grant those as your normal standard redevelopment project.
We'll do that tonight or?
We can do that when we close it.
Okay.
Do you have any comment on the 53G waiting?
We'd like to gain approval tonight and make it contingent upon no further significant comments from the peer reviewer. We are meeting
I
next
mean,
week.
yeah, they meet with the zoning board
Yeah.
next week,
Yeah.
and it's kind of a catch-22 there.
Right, right.
At the
I mean,
point-
we were chatting about a little bit.
Right.
Barring
I mean,
any
it-
changes.
I don't,
They've made changes, significant ones.
right, to get where they're at now. I don't,
And everything's approved with the states and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, Army Corps of Engineers have gone through it, and
So it's not
they've
like,
got
So
the
we
turtle
can do a
replication part
contingency
done. I mean,
approval
it's,
Yeah,
um,
Yeah, we submitted every required permit that we believe we've had to
Yeah.
for this project.
so,
at this point, depending on what the zoning board came back with, you could address it as a minor project change.
Yeah.
If it was small enough, if they came up with something after we,
yeah,
right.
so it's,
true.
Otherwise, we can.
right. So
Move it along.
it's,
So you don't have to worry about.
it's up to you. I mean, if you
Been
wanna,
a year or so, let's try to get the,
3 years.
And that's pretty nice.
yeah.
it's,
9 months. So I mean, you guys have been coming in every time and updating it more and more, and come a long way from
Yeah.
since you first began.
Yeah.
But we got a lot of great comments from the reviewer. I mean, some were, little minor things, but we've addressed them. And
Yeah, and it's not like you came in and it's like, oh, I don't know about this. I mean, you guys are doing what you're supposed to be doing. It's taken 3 years to do it, so it's not like
Nothing's done illegally, so.
No, I mean, it's,
So how do we move it?
we would just
if you want, we can close it and you
close
can,
and forget about the
Yeah,
53G, right?
that's
right, and issue the 2 waivers and issue the general stormwater permit and
Yep.
issue the order,
And
standard
2
order
waivers
condition.
if I may, I've
Yeah.
missed 3.
Yes,
Right, the riverfront, you're right,
Yeah, to
right.
work within the
Yeah.
bank. But
So just, okay, so I'll entertain a motion to grant a waiver to work in, should I say just 3 at once or do a separate?
Do separate. So
So-
50-foot, no touch.
To work in the 50-foot no touch.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
And entertain a motion to work, grant a waiver to work in
The
50
riverfront.
foot for the riverfront.
So moved.
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
And what was the last one?
aye,
And the stormwater regulation.
Okay, entertain a motion to grant a waiver to work in the 50-foot for the stormwater management.
So moved.
the,
second,
Go ahead.
the matter is considering it not an impervious.
Right, the impervious, the regrindings as an impervious material.
Add that to it.
Yep, that's the stormwater waiver.
Oh,
Gravel or the raft surfaces to be considered
to work
impervious.
for the impervious for the wrap.
So moved.
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
aye,
And then entertain a motion to close.
Yep,
So moved.
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
aye,
and then you need a motion to issue a general stormwater permit.
Okay, geez, entertain a motion to,
What's going on?
what is general stormwater management?
So moved.
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then a motion,
aye,
to issue a standard order of conditions.
And a motion to order, standard order of conditions.
So moved.
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
aye,
And if there are any minor project changes, we'll.
Right,
we'll
depending
deal
on
with
what
that. Yeah,
the zoning comes back
At
with
least
next
we're
week.
moving it along.
Right. We can-
Wow, that was a lot more than expected tonight, right?
Thank you very much.
He's smiling.
No, good for you guys, because you've done a lot.
Well, it's, if the warm weather's here, you wanna get going.
I'm excited to see when it's done.
Yeah.
It's gonna be nice.
It'll be on you.
Do you think you'll have it done this summer?
We're gonna try to start construction as soon as we can.
You gotta bid it and all that?
Yeah, I got a couple guys already, like, in the pipeline, just
Yeah.
waiting.
Just gotta put the,
Put the shovel into the ground.
yeah,
good.
excellent.
Well, welcome to West Bridgewater.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Thank you, ladies and
All
gentlemen.
right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great night.
All right.
All right,
Moving along at a,
next one is just
Rapid pace.
administrative for 280 South Main Street for request of certificate of compliance.
And this is cleaning up
Septic
old
repair.
filings. This is, the old Weatherby's Wicker World that had a septic repair replacement done in the back
Man, that's a long time ago.
years ago. It
cleaning the files.
Wow.
needed to be cleaned up. It's all been done. The as-bilt's been created. We just need to close the file.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to issue the certificate of compliance for 280 South Main Street.
So move.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
aye,
And then, get some stuff signed, and
Voila.
that's basically it. Then there's just a note here on 40 United Drive.
Right, which would be continued till the 7th. However, depending on, planning board is gonna be meeting and taking that up when they take up 38. So I'm expecting that that'll be continued to sometime, probably in June.
Wow.
Because we've gotta get
Already.
38 put to bed first before they can start
Yeah.
on.
Halfway through the year.
That goes by quick.
Does.
Is there anybody else who's got any comments in the audience? No?
Mr. Chairman,
So, Tim, I want to ask you a question. Could you explain to me more about this impervious stuff?
Okay, so the impervious surfaces typically are asphalt,
Right.
concrete. The impervious, depending, can be gravel, can be stone, can be lawn, can be, and if it's compacted, and that's what he's doing here, is taking into consideration the compaction and how compacted it is to allow water to infiltrate into the ground.
Okay.
Even if it's compacted, it will still allow a certain amount of water to leach in through into the ground. And that's what he wants the waiver to take into consideration, that it will, even though it's gonna be packed over time and it can bind up, but it's still gonna allow for infiltration.
I think he told me he didn't own the software, but someone he knows had it. And he ran the calculations on this software and it,
And I mean, it's not like just natural soils.
No.
So it's not gonna drain as fast, but it
Yeah.
still will
Yeah.
alloll for something.
Okay.
And
just
so-
doesn't run off.
And he's using that in his calculations, so he's still gonna take any of the runoff and treat it, but he wants to allow some of it to go into the
Pretty
ground.
amazing. I mean, I'm thinking back to what Bob had to say about the swamp, for all the calculations that we make. Of course, he's got a surrounding area, so there's probably a lot of factors as to why he's got
Well, like you said,
issues there.
there's
And I mean,
a lot
it-
when people go in there and do stuff they're not supposed to do and then get caught. Oops.
I mean, but
I mean,
that wasn't,
Bob's
that's
defense,
not the
the-
root cause, though.
That was
No,
a red
but-
cedar, a red maple swamp at one point.
Yeah.
So it had a lot of canopy, a lot of foliage.
Right,
It accounted for a lot of stormwater, a lot of water quality treatment. And
right.
it flooded, the plants died out because of
Yeah.
lack of oxygen at the roots. So now it's all dead trees, and it's
Mhm.
not having that effect.
I
So,
mean, it's just progress surrounding area.
and that one was beavers causing that. So
Oh, okay.
Mother Nature caused
Yeah.
the trees to die. But he's right, you gotta take into account all the stormwater that's happening and where's
Yes.
it gonna go, and
Right. Oh, you do.
so.
But it does shed that way anyway,
Right,
doesn't it?
it's naturally gonna wanna go to that direction.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Second,
Aye.
Aye.
All right,
aye.